Welcome to Bounce, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of product teams, the challenges they face, and the incredible stories of resilience that emerge. I'm Mollie Cox, your co-host, a product designer with a knack for navigating through the storms of creativity.
And I'm your co-host, Claire Flowers, a product manager who's seen it all. The highs, the lows, and everything in between.
Each week we'll bring you tales of product traumas, those moments that test our limits, they push our boundaries, and sometimes bring us to our knees.
We're talking about career flops and follies and those pivotal moments when everything seems to fall apart.
But as we know, the harder you fall, the higher you bounce. We'll explore with our guests their toughest challenges,
The actions they took to overcome them.
and how these experiences have shaped their careers and continue to impact them today.
So join us in this journey of resilience, growth, and bouncing back stronger than ever.
Welcome to Bounce. I'm Mollie Cox, your co-host, joined here with Claire Flowers, your other co-host of the podcast. Today, we're super excited. We have Jeremy Miller here. For all of you who listen, you probably know that Jeremy is the ever infamous not even a co-host. You are the host of Beyond UX Design, which is, infamous. That's what I'm going to call you today. If you have not taken a listen, please do take a listen. But there's so much more to Jeremy that we're going to learn today. One of the things I really love about him is he is a champion of soft skills. We've had a conversation. We've had numerous conversations talking about the true magic of soft skills for a lot of people in UX design. He has a career, especially a design career that has started way back in the 2000s. Jeremy, you and I'm going to call you out on the 2000s here. He took a shift into UX in about 2011 and has worked for both startups and large corporations. And in 2024, this year, he co-founded Edgecase, which is ultimately a consultancy dedicated to really helping startups bring their innovative ideas to life. So, Jeremy, you have so much going on, and I'm excited to dig into this with you.
Hell yeah. I am excited to be here. Long time listener since the beginning. I know you guys have, how many episodes have you had?
Oh my gosh. We as of today at this recording, we have released 11 episodes, Claire.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah. Half the battle is releasing more than one. So
exactly. There's like that hump, like most podcasts don't go past. And it's hard too with a co-host because timing and everything is really hard.
And now we've got you on the other side of the mic, Jeremy. So
I know
a little different for you today. Yeah,
it is. I'm going to have a hard time not asking you guys a bunch of questions.
Hey, you know what? Feel free. We're here for it.
Yeah, listen, we're ready for you to tell us all the shit we're doing wrong on this podcast.
Yeah.
No, so good to be talking to you today, Jeremy. Big fan of all of your content. I'd love to kind of kick us off. If you just want to tell us how you got started in design and really how you built your career.
Yeah, for sure. So, us, I don't know if, I don't want to insult you here, Molly. I'm insulting myself.
Hey, I called you out on early 2000s. Insult away.
It's funny because somebody recently called me a geriatric millennial. So I kind of think of myself as like a geriatric UX designer at this point, although I know there's people that have been doing a lot longer than me, but I started in the early 2000s. And it's funny because there's a lot of people that ask me like, oh, how do I get into UX design? And the more I talk, like, and as kind of the job market changes from what I experience, I was like, I don't know that I really have an answer for people now because I fell into it, to be honest, like completely by mistake. I'll give you the abridged version, but back in the early 2000s, I was going to LSU. Go Tigers.
Wait,
sorry.
LSU?
LSU. Yeah, it's funny.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to. I'm going to go off. Well,
we diverted already. Okay.
What the hell? When I was a kid, I used to say LS shoe, like a shoe, and it wasn't until I was older, because my family, everybody went to LSU. So, Anyway, I used to think it was LSU.
So every time I see a shoe now, I'll think of you when you're young and LSU. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So Claire, I know you're an Alabama fan. I won't hold that against you.
Don't insult me. I am not an Alabama fan. I am an Auburn fan, which might be even more insulting. But I claim Auburn, not Alabama.
Oh, for some reason I thought
War
you
Eagle.
Went to. Okay, you didn't go to Alabama.
No, I didn't. I didn't go to Auburn either. But my whole family went to Auburn. So
for some reason I thought
I claim
we
Auburn.
had a. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't mean to insult you. For some reason I thought we had a. Maybe I was talking to somebody else. I must have been talking to somebody
There's
else.
Lots of Alabama fans out there.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
it's okay.
All right. Anyway, okay, cool. Well, so that's that. Now I feel much better. It was as standoffish. No. So anyway, so I went to LSU. I was going to school for economics, mostly because everybody in my family was like, you need to get an MBA, go to business school. And my uncles and cousins, they all had their MBA. So I was like, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. So the problem was I was playing music. I was in a bunch of bands. And so I was drinking almost every night, and my grades were absolutely terrible. And so I didn't have the grades to get into the business school. So I was like, well, what's the next best thing? So LSU had an arts and science program for economics, which you didn't have to have. There was no minimum GPA. So I did that. And, I was like, oh, I'll go to school. It's sort of similar, I guess. So anyway, I was going to school at LSU playing music and not really caring very much about economics and school. But what happened was my bass player who designed the flyers and the website and all that stuff, we got into a fight. I don't remember what it was about, but he quit the band. And so they were like, well, who's going to do it? I was like, I don't know. I'll try it out. So this was like, I don't know, 2002. And so I started doing our website. And I started doing our flyers, and he had like hand coded the website. So I had to like get in, like open a text editor and like edit HTML and CSS. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I bought a bunch of books and basically just taught myself how to build websites. So, my friends, they needed websites, they needed CD art, they needed flyers. So I started doing it for them, charging them a couple $100, 6-pack of beer. And so I started realizing, hey, I can make a little bit of money. Anyway, Katrina hit. And, I was like, I kind of had this guilt, the sort of survivor's guilt. So I moved back. For those who don't know, LSU, about an hour northwest of New Orleans. So relatively close to New Orleans. So anyway, I moved home, dropped out of school. I was like, screw it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Dropped out of school, moved back to New Orleans, joined another band. And the singer, guitar player was an architect, but also a really good graphic designer. And so he was like, hey, we should start our own agency, And I was like, yeah, I've been doing that, charging a couple $100 for this. He's like, dude, we could charge thousands. What are you talking about? Why are you charging hundreds? So we started doing that, and we got a bunch of clients, and we were making money, and, it was decent. We were doing freelancing, a lot of local businesses and stuff like that. And I realized like, hey, this is cool. I like this a lot. I want to do this for a living. And it was not UX. This was, advertising, web design, identity design, graphic design, stuff like that. Anyway, so I ended up going back to Tulane, getting a degree, and because I wanted to get a job at an agency. And back then you had to have a degree. So I ended up getting a job at a local ad agency down in New Orleans, worked there for a few years. And then in like 2011, I was like, I'm kind of done with advertising. I don't really like it. It's kind of boring. And randomly found a UX job, UX UI developer job. It was weird. It was like a front end developer because I was doing websites and stuff. So front end developer, UX hybrid role. I guess UX engineer before UX engineers were a thing. So
back when they had no idea what to call
yeah,
this,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And I think I got really lucky because 2011, I don't know that there were that many UX designers in the city of New Orleans, to be honest.
I don't know that there were that many outside of maybe Microsoft, to be honest.
Right, exactly, right. So this little startup, we were an agency that built apps, software for other startups. So they would come to us, and we were owned by a VC, an angel investor who would a lot of times finance our clients, and he sort of had his hand in everything. So anyway, we did that. So it was cool because I got to do like pretty much everything. Front end development. I got to do UX design. I got to work with a bunch of different small startups and kind of see how that all works. And then, so fast forward about 2016, my wife and I were trying to have a kid, and, I was making peanuts, like 40,000 a year, I think, at this startup. And I had, equity, quote unquote equity, which forever, I
worth
actually don't think
everything,
I've ever seen.
Right?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a dime of that, by the way. But anyway, so I ended up getting a job. GE had just opened a big office down in New Orleans, and they were hiring like crazy. So 2016, I was like, I want to do this, like try it out. I always work for these startups. Let's see what it's like working in a giant enterprise. So anyway, so I got a job at GE, and I realized that was when I started actually working with other designers that were more experienced than me, because we had hired other designers and I was leading a team. But what I realized in 2016 was like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I was at the peak of Mount Stupid, Dunning-Kruger effect to the max. And I realized like, yeah, exactly. And I realized I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, there's so much more to this job. So anyway, fast forward from 2016 on, been doing enterprise software for a while. And then December, left GE and started my own consulting, again, working with startups, trying to get back. Cause I like the fast paced kind of, it's definitely doing consulting work for enterprise is very different from doing consulting work for startups. So I like it a lot. I feel like I know way more now than I did back in the day, and I feel like I can be more effective. So long story short, well, that might not be short actually. Long story somewhat shortened. That's how I got into UX.
So what I hear you saying, Jeremy, is like back in the day you were a dude in a band and you thought, how hard can this design thing be? And
yeah,
just jumped in.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My wife actually, so she went to LSU and got her bachelor's of fine arts. So she was a graphic designer, and we weren't dating yet, but we were just friends. So I would kind of pass stuff along to her. And it's funny because it never occurred to me at all, not once, that, hey, maybe I should look into getting into the design program at LSU. That thought like never crossed my mind. I don't know why. But I knew a lot of designers, and I would just sort of like, get them to critique my work and get insights and like input and, hey, do this, change that, blah, 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 whatever. But it never occurred to me to actually switch majors. I was just continue to fail like economics and calculus and like all this crap.
Yeah, it's crazy. I would imagine you're somewhat in a similar situation to me. So my background, it's like we walked the same road, except I was in Nebraska and you were down in LSU, but had nothing to do with design. I was just a girl who was like, how hard can design be, right? And jumped into it. And then I also say I just tripped into this field. Here I am, right? Went through the agency life, was like, agency life is not for me, went into software. But where I'm saying we're probably very similar is you probably have people ask you a lot, like, how do I get into this? What path do I take? I don't know about you, but I have such a difficult time answering that question because I have no idea. I literally, I zigzagged. I went from point A to Z and took every crossroad in between to get here. And it couldn't be more different today. So I don't know. Do you have like a de facto that you tell people when you get asked that question?
This is sort of one of the reasons why I stopped doing a lot of the early career mentoring. I used to do ADP list a lot. And I would get these questions and I would give them answers, and the things I thought were right. And I got laid off in December of last year. And one of the reasons why I started Edgecase was because I couldn't get a job. And I realized like all the advice I was giving people was total bullshit. Like it didn't work. Like none of it worked. And so I'm like, why am I continuing to give you advice that like clearly isn't working for me? I mean, obviously I'm not junior and I was trying to get more senior level roles. So it's a little different, I guess, but still, it kind of made me realize like the advice I was giving was clearly not working for me. I don't feel comfortable giving this advice to people. I'd rather give people advice on how to do their jobs better once they have the job, as opposed to giving them advice on how to, your resume and networking and blah, blah, blah. Like it just clearly didn't work for me. So yeah, I don't know. It's totally different now. And I don't know that my advice.
So
works.
what would you, if you could go back and you could like put yourself back in that place where you're giving people advice, what would you change?
Yeah, if I were like young Jeremy trying to start my career again.
Back when you were giving people advice on how to get a job.
Interesting.
What would you change about what you told them?
I would say there's such a difference between macro level and micro level. I think it's interesting because I compare a lot of what's going on now to what I did learn in economics about supply and demand and macro versus micro. And when you think about at the macro level, like you can give people advice at a macro level and say, this is generally right, but none of us are averages. None of us are the average. Every one of us are unique and every one of us are different. And so I don't know that I don't know how you give this advice though. That's the thing. And the reason why I kind of stopped, it's like what works for me and works for you could be completely different things, but they both work.
Yeah.
And so I think the advice that I would probably give people would be just be very aware of the advice that you're getting and understand that it might not fit your exact context.
Yeah. Parse through it, right? Like
exactly.
take what sounds right for you and get rid of all the other stuff. It's just like feedback in design. You don't have to take everything.
Right.
Like use what works for you and what you think you can apply well. Get rid of the garbage, the noise.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. We have a caller coming in. They're saying that you gave them like really bad advice.
They want their money back.
Jeremy. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, but I think that's the thing. It's like, I don't think, and I don't know, this is maybe the advice that I would give people would be less, here's what to do. And it's more, here's how to think about your situation. And I think the thinking critically piece is what a lot of the junior designers, or not junior, entry level people, maybe sub entry level people who are still looking for their first role, they want people to tell them what to do. And I don't think anyone can. And I think that's the hardest part, that I think a lot of these people that are getting into UX design now, they miss that critical thinking part, because they're so dead set on being taught a skill. Teach me how to do a thing. Teach me this thing. Show me what to do. What actions do I need to take? And that's the thing that I think people are probably lacking more than anything else. Not everybody, obviously, but I think that critical thinking piece it's so hard to do, though. It's so hard to get. But that's the advice I don't know, going back.
And it's almost like a lot of what I hear about, and I've experienced this myself, is there's this paralysis that you experience when you're trying to find a job, where you're trying to follow these steps. Like, if I apply to X amount of jobs and network this, I will find a job. And I think what people need to understand is that you need to be able to take a risk. You need to like make the right decision for yourself in the time when you're making the decision, and just throw the control that you think that you have over this whole process out the door, and just put one's foot in front of the other, and just, you're going to have to take some risks. And I think that from you veterans, what I hear and what I've learned.
Thank you for using veteran.
I like that. Better than geriatric UX designer. I like that.
The commonality or the pattern that I've observed is from hearing people say, like, I just fell into it. You fell into it, but you took a risk, right? You took a job that you weren't comfortable doing, but you were like, you had confidence in yourself to try something out. Maybe there's like, when you trip into something, maybe there's like a little bit of like naiveness to it. So like, people need to be able to take a risk in some ways and learn.
And the expectation, right? The expectation are much lower. I mean, Jeremy, you just said you were done in Kruger effect. Like, I don't know which one you were. Were you? But just kidding. It's the whole theory. But what's interesting is you do walk into it when you quote unquote trip into something, and you think, like, there's no preconceived notion of what's going to happen. And then you're humbled very quickly, because you're like, I didn't even know this is what this was going to be. But there's such a high expectation now. Not that I want to go down the road of this in this podcast today. It's just we're on the topic. I'm curious, Jeremy, there's a lot of talk right now on the socials and mentorship that people should niche down, right? Get really focused on the job you want and where you want to go. Having been a job searcher recently, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that piece of advice?
I think it depends, right?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, what do you want for your career? Do you want a very, very, very specific thing? Have you thought very long and hard about that skill set and why you're really good at it and why that should work for you? If you've been working for 10, 15 years, maybe you know that answer. And maybe niching down is really smart. If you're brand new, I've interviewed several people recently about this idea of a playground, right? Allison Gretz, we talked with her about this idea of treating your career like a playground, because we often treat it like a ladder, right? Where I'm only going to go up. And if I ever have to shift, going down is perceived as a ding, right? Like, oh, why'd you take a lower paying job? Why'd you take a lower salary? Why'd you take a lower title? It's like, something must be wrong with them. But really, it's like, I love her idea of it being like a playground, because I can try different things, and I can go up the slide. I can go up the slide 5 times. I can go try the monkey bars. I might fall and hurt myself and get up and keep trying till I can do it. And then I want to go play with something else. And so I think that idea of hopping around and being maybe you generalist, right? Early in your career, but then you could even do that later in your career. So like, I don't know. It really all depends on what you want, I think, like, I was talking with Hong Xiu on our podcast recently, and we talked about this idea of like Marie Kondo and does this shirt bring me joy? And if not, throw it away. And I think you could apply the same concepts to your career. Does this job bring me joy? Does this niche bring me joy? And if it does, go all in. I still think that with the market being so dynamic and changing constantly, if you do niche down, you do run the risk of some other thing coming and taking that task away from you. Right. And so if you niche down, be sure that it's going to be there 20 years from now when you're ready to retire, or be ready to pivot and treat it like a playground and learn a thing, because like we say like the T-shaped designer, but it could be like the pie shaped. I'm just made this up. I don't know. Somebody else made it come up, but the pie shaped designer where I've got like a line, but then I've got like other verticals that I can keep in like learning and niching down in little things, but that doesn't mean I can only do that one thing.
Yeah.
So,
and
anyway,
I think the question too is like, how do you want a job? Like, I feel like sometimes if you niche down, you're closing off opportunity that may come to you, especially early in your career. How do you even possibly know what you want to niche down into?
Right. Exactly.
I don't know. And again, going back to us just kind of tripping, like we had none of those expectations. Like, oh, I'll just kind of take this job and see how it works out. That worked for you and I back in the day, but I don't know. It's just interesting.
Exactly.
So one of the things I want to ask you is, you kind of mentioned this just a little bit ago, is kind of you were actually part of the layoffs too, which is proof positive that in this world right now, no one is safe and they are coming.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what was your experience with that? We hear a lot of, I don't think people really get real about what those feelings were, what happened in those moments, and how did you stay sane while you were on that job hunt?
All right. So I've been laid off from the same company twice in 4 years. So the second time was a lot easier actually than the first time. So the first time we were down in New Orleans and my wife worked for GE as well. And we had a big site downtown. We had like 4 floors and a big office building, beautiful office. They let the entire office go, everybody. And my wife got laid off too. So both of us, same meeting. Hey, you're not going to have a job anymore.
Your eyes met across the room. Tears fell.
Yeah. And so, well, no, this was COVID. So we were all like on separate rooms.
Oh, no. Okay. So across the Zoom channel. Okay.
Separate rooms, actually. Yeah. Because we had different bosses. So our bosses but all at the same time. It's like very short 15-minute, 5-10 minute. I don't even think it lasted the full 15 minutes. Anyway, that was freaking stressful as hell. How did I stay sane the second time? My wife didn't get laid off.
Big difference.
So we at least had the runway, right? And so I'll be honest, like GE, for whatever you say about big giant corporations, they treated us so well. I have heard horror stories of people who were like let go that day, their computers were shut off. Like the first time GE gave us 3 months notice. They gave us the opportunity to reapply to an internal job for a year. They gave us I can't remember the exact amount, but it was crazy. Like the severance that they gave us was huge, like well into the 5 figures. The second time I got a month notice. I got 8.5. I got like a week's worth of pay for every year. So it was like 8.5 weeks of pay. So I got a couple of months, 2.5 months, like, severance. Plus I got my bonus from that year. So anyway, I did a lot better this time. And so all of that that runway was what really kept me from like freaking out. And that was what helped finance Edgecase and kind of keep me going. Because, starting a new business, I wasn't ready to start a business, to be perfectly honest. Like if you had asked me like, hey, we're going to start our consultancy, I would have been like, let me focus on work to finance all the other stuff. And I'll keep my full-time job and I'll do the consulting on the side at night. And so, getting that rug pulled out was a shock, but having that runway was really nice. And then also too, my wife is in software. So she makes a lot of money. So we were able to kind of cover the bills, but we're very privileged. I will be the first to admit that. And we're in a really good spot. So to answer your question, how did I not get, how did I keep from stressing out? It was the fact that I didn't have to worry about the bank coming and taking my house and my car and like everything else. So the runway was, I think, the biggest thing. And the advice, the takeaway I hope that people hear is, have some money saved up, because you never know when it's coming. You never know when it's coming.
And you are very lucky to even have a heads up. I've been through numerous layoffs and just blindsided, absolute blindsided. So there's the complete opposite side of the field here, where you go to work one day and it is like, bam, I don't even like, you're done. Like you said, your computer's shut off and you're on your own, so having that money, having that runway is critical. But in today's economy, I mean, that's way easier said than done,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really isn't easy. And the other thing that like, I also think about that really got me thinking post layoff was, why do we have all this crap? do I need this stuff? You know, thinking about Marie Kondo again, like, do I need this thing? Does it really bring me joy? Why am I paying for this? Why am I paying for that? Did I need to buy this expensive thing? And sometimes, you know, some of it I've already bought it and that's fine. But I think the lifestyle creep for people in the tech industry is just such a big thing that they don't think about. And, you know, you make, this big fancy 200 grand, you know, I've heard some people work at Meta make like $500,000 after all their benefits and shit.
And
like,
they work on one button for a year. Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane. Like how much people make in this industry. And so you get used to a certain lifestyle, and that, you know, 500 grand a year, that's not sustainable. Like at some point they're going to be like, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we paying you so much? See ya. You know? And so that lifestyle goes away, or that money goes away, and you still have to pay for that lifestyle. You know, it's like, why did MC Hammer go bankrupt? You know, he had literally millions and millions of dollars.
I mean, let's not even talk about Nick Cage and his dinosaur skulls, right? Like
seriously, like, you know, that lifestyle creep is just, it gets you and it sneaks up on you. You don't even realize it. You know?
I'm at this point where interesting. I could go on a million different topics from this, because to some extent, what I really see missing from a lot of people coming into design, and this is my perception, I can't speak for anything else, is a passion for it. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things, Jimmy, with the path that we took, we were just passionate about design in general. I just want to make cool shit, man. Right, I just want to make shit. I don't care if it's for a brand. I don't care. Like, I want to do these things, where I do feel like so many people that I see, this is suddenly a career now. This is suddenly an opportunity to make money. This is a very lucrative field, if you will. My daughter is 10. You guys, we were driving home last night. She's like, Mom, I think I want to be a product designer. And I was like, no, don't. No, you don't. Run away. But I'm like, what does that even mean to you? Right. Like right.
What does that mean?
What does that?
Into that?
I did dig into that. And she got it. She's like, I want to make cool shit. And I was like, okay, I'm here for that. But at the same time, there's just this level of financial security, if you will, that comes with this job. And like you said, I mean, back in 2015, I was making like 50 grand. That was amazing money then, right? Would never imagine what this field would get to now. But my point is, like, I think we're at this weird place that the more you earn, I don't know, I get scared. The more and more I start making, the more expendable you are in this field. So what is that happy medium? So while there may be some people coming in for the financial aspect of it, you got to be real careful. There is a line to toe. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What? Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, so it's interesting you mentioned that, because I had you guys sent the guide, the conversation guide, and the last thing was stop, start, and continue. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you want to get into.
Are you going to jump ahead on us? No, let's get into
it. It actually, the thing I was gonna say stop doing is stop focusing on title. Mm-hmm. Stop focusing on the title of UX designer, product designer, whatever it is, and think about the work. Think about what has to get done. You could take any title. And this is, I think, part of the problem. A lot of junior designers I've seen, or people, again, pre-junior designer, that want a job in UX design so bad that they are unwilling to take any other job. And they will put stuff on their, I've talked to people who put stuff on their credit card to finance a job search. It's insane. Like, I just can't even fathom doing that. Like, they are just so unwilling to take a job waiting tables. Yeah. To finance their job search. It's like, I have to get a job as UX designer. And then when they get that job, everything revolves around that title. And they refuse to take, you know, you could stay in tech and take 1,000 other jobs with different titles and still build great software and deliver great work and help users do a thing, if that's what you're passionate about, or help drive value, or whatever your passion is. So that's I don't know where I was going with this. My ADHD brain's going all over the place.
Hey, but you've got like three, Claire, like, I can't speak for Claire. You've got one other ADHD person here on the line, so I'm following you real well.
And I'm ADHD as well. Great.
See, I wasn't gonna out Claire on this, but
how are we gonna get this episode done? I don't know.
So anyway, I can't remember what your question was, Molly. I'm sorry, but the focus.
You were talking about stopping. We need to stop focusing on titles.
Yes, that's what it was. Yes. But I can't remember how I got there. Anyway, there was something sparked that, but focus on title, and I think that's like one of the biggest things that I see people doing nowadays, and it limits them in so many ways. And we were talking about financially. So like you know, if you get you don't have the opportunity to progress in your career as UX designer, take another fucking job.
Yep.
Take a different title. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be manager. It could be an individual contributor, but you could still deliver really great software and help a user at the end of the day, if that's what you're passionate about, by doing other things that aren't necessarily UX design, but still thinking about the craft, still thinking about the work of a UX designer. You just might be a product
Absolutely.
designer,
Do you know how many
or
people
might be a product manager or something.
I've told too, like, just get your foot in the door in software. Like, I like I was working with somebody who's a QA, and I was like, and that's just as hard. Everything is hard to get into right now, right? But it's like, don't focus on that. Get a CS. Go in for customer support. Go in for customer success, right?
Yeah.
Get your foot in the door and learn the industry, because while you may know design, there is so much about the software process you have no idea. Tell me what ARR is. Tell me the business side of software, and most of them can't answer that because they're so new. And it's like, if you can just get your door in doing anything in software, that's going to help you immensely at this point.
Talk about something that would be a great foot in the door, QA before going into design. Oh my gosh. Like we have like the company where I work have really talented QA folks. And a lot of what they send back is less about like, here's a bug, and more about like, this is a confusing user flow. And then they usually will like go to the designer and be like, have you considered this? And the designer's like, well, yeah, we did consider that. That's a really good point. Maybe we could move this thing here. And it's like, it just gets it's like a great place to start. And what that looks like, I guess, for like entry level things is a lot of people who get into QA start as a support. They're supporting users. They're teaching users how to do stuff. They're answering things. You learn a product so well, then there's a path, right? You start in support. Ooh, I'm really interested in QA. QA can be a little bit technical, but design is technical, so then you go into QA, and then maybe there's a position that opens in design. It's an awesome place to start. That's not traditional design.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Molly, you mentioned customer support. Like QA is awesome. Customer support's another one where, our job often is to have empathy for users and understand what they're going through and their pain points. What better way to get that
than talking
to hear it directly
daily
from them? And how often do UX designers not even get that opportunity?
Ever.
Never, right? Very rarely. And when I think about most teams, they might have a customer experience team, but I don't think I've ever seen an org set up where customer experience supports UX design and vice versa. I've never seen it. They are always separate. It's a completely separate org with a completely separate reporting structure. And the CX team might influence the product team, and the product team might, but I've never seen it where they're connected. And so UX designers very rarely get that, maybe from research, but
I do want to mention something here for anyone listening, and you're like a manager. While like when you're trying to enter the market, you need to like consider taking a different job title. Managers and leaders of organizations, you have got to start creating paths for junior people to get into the industry. Please stop just only hiring seniors. Create internships. Look across the organization and try and like recruit. We've got to start creating paths for people like that. Otherwise, it just becomes like this problem that there's no way to get into it. So that would be my stop.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
But
stop gatekeeping.
Stop gatekeeping, damn it. But I'm with Jimmy here. Listen, I was in this group on Facebook. Claire, you've heard me talk about this. Like this is one of my most despised groups I've ever been a part of. And maybe I shouldn't call Facebook out directly, but it's just kind of a drudge of comments there now. But the group had a very specific name where it should have been called like trying to get into UX, because most people in this group were not in there. But the amount of posts I would see like, well, guys, it's it for me. I'm hanging up my hat. Like, I'm just not getting the product designer job, so I'm done here. Like, it's not meant to be. But how many of them tried to get other jobs in the software industry, right? Like you said, you get like, I think about all the companies I was a part of. First and foremost, to be on the phones, like we just said, with a user for 6 months straight, hearing the ins and outs, and then getting close with the product team and working with them, there's no better in. And your acumen and knowledge of what the users need and want today will hands down beat most people in product.
For
but
sure.
just nobody's willing to do it. Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Okay,
Kids
well,
today.
yeah, well, you started it, Jeremy. So if people should stop doing that, stop focusing on titles. So just for everybody, let's rewind just a little bit. We love asking everybody who comes on, if you could start, stop, and continue anything, what would it be? So you just said stop titles. What should people start doing?
Yeah. Well,
Jeremy?
I think, this is something that, and this is, my book, the show, like everything, I talk about this quite a bit, but start thinking beyond your role, right? If you start to embrace other things, you start to think about how you fit into the larger picture. And one of the things we hear constantly, empathy's become like a joke almost in like UX circles, but we'll fall all over ourselves talking about how we have empathy for users, and nobody ever thinks about empathy for stakeholders, empathy for the leadership team, empathy for the people that you work with, empathy for product managers, empathy for all of the other people. Yeah. And so it's like when you put UX designer as the most important, the integral, the linchpin. If you don't have UX designers, your product's going to fail. If you like have that mindset. The other thing, and this goes to empathy too, is like, I hear this all the time is, why did you want to be a UX designer? Oh, I like to solve problems. Like, Claire, do you solve problems? Would you say you're a problem solver?
Sometimes.
Seriously? Oh, you're killing my argument here.
In a meta, and like mathematically, no.
Well, not math problems, like problems. Like, do you solve?
Claire, we are not tied.
Yes, I would say I solve problems.
6.
Sure.
Yeah, no. So but stakeholders say they're solving problems. Product managers are solving problems. Fucking QA engineers, they're solving problems. Customer support people are solving problems. Like, they're all solving problems. UX designers do not have the monopoly on problem solving, and it goes back to empathy. Like, we just think that we are the most important people on the team, and we're not. We're not, like this is something I mention all the time. I mention in my book. Empathy
I heard it loud and clear.
Stakeholders, but software is a team sport.
1,000%.
You cannot build great software without great relationships, and if you don't take that into account, and you don't take into account all the other people on the team that impact the experience of a user, at the end of the day, you are never going to excel in your career. I can promise you that. So, anyway, continue or start thinking about empathy. Start thinking about your team, start thinking about how you can support the rest of the people on your team and all help solve problems together. That's what I want people to start doing.
And I think that's such an excellent point. And I think that a lot of times, like, Mollie and I used to work together at the same company. We don't anymore. It's very sad. But Mollie led like a really good workshop it was like product design, product marketing, product management. And it was all about like, all right, let everybody get in a room and let's talk about the things that you consider to be your core job function, right? Mm-hmm. And what came out of that is that everybody on the team kind of thought that they were like owning the same thing, which I thought was actually good, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's kind of how it should be. Yeah. But what came out of that is, or for me, is like leading up to that, it was always just kind of like people like, who owns discovery? That should be product design or product managers. Actually, we own discovery. Product marketing, we own discovery. And it's like, why can't all be true? Right. And I find that sometimes in organizations, I've experienced this a lot. There's a lot of emphasis on like, well, no, that's my job. I own that thing. Mm-hmm. I do that. And so that's when you get into the stepping on toes. And it's you do need to be respectful of, there are lines and swim lanes that you need to follow, but you also need to like open yourself up for someone, maybe in engineering, and they want to poke a hole in your discovery effort. That's good. Yeah. That's another perspective that you have. And I think that, people should stop looking at their roles as owning a swim lane and think about how the whole team can contribute.
Yeah.
To all
what
those
piece
things.
do we own of this part? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the relationship piece is so important, because every software team is different, right? It's not like I say, building great software is a team sport, but it's not like Major League Baseball where every single team has a pitcher and a shortstop and a catcher and a first baseman, second baseman. Some teams have to play the game with half of the people, or they didn't get the budget to hire the superstar. And so everybody's got to play different roles. And it's not like, a Major League Baseball, NFL, whatever sport team you like. You have to think about that, right? And that's why relationships are so important, because if you don't make the effort to go and understand, what does Claire, we're working together as product manager. What do you expect your role to be? What do you expect me to do? And setting those expectations. Because when you look at, I've seen so many Venn diagrams of product manager, product design, there's all this overlap. And then you're like, oh, well, that's why we fight all the time. But the real reason we fight is not because there's overlap. It's because we didn't set the right expectations. Right. And we didn't say, this is how we will support each other. This is how I expect to be involved here. I expect to help this. I expect to support that. How do you expect me to deliver? And that's why we end up with the fighting, because we just assume, well, it's my job. It's my swim lane. Like you said, Molly, like we're going to blah, blah, blah. And then you just end up butting heads. But if you're building great relationships with your team, you don't do that, because everybody understands what part they play. And I think that's like ultimately the key. And I think, again, going back to the empathy, like we just like UX designers own this, and, product manager, leave me alone. I'll come back to you when I'm ready. Like just you don't build great software that way.
And so, I'll even go back to the title that you talked about earlier. Like titles don't even mean you're doing the same thing on that team. Right. So for example, I've been a director for many years now. Everywhere I have had this role, it has meant something different, right? Sure. So like I have been a director where I'm primarily managing people and I'm pretty out of the work, right? Today, I'm in a director position. I am hands-on right now. Yeah. Like I'm basically in a team. I am an IC as well, doing things. So like every team, to your point, is going to look so different, and title hardly means anything as a part of that.
Yeah.
So
couldn't agree more.
It's
all related.
The tangled webs we weave. So Jeremy, then what do we continue?
Well, I think, what did I had notes. I'm glad you guys sent this ahead of time, because thinking about this, I would have gone like 1,000. I would have had a bunch of different answers. But I think continue. This is the thing. If you focus on all these other roles, it's not to say that UX skills are unimportant, right? Those human-centered, user-centered concepts you can take with you to any other role. Product managers can still be, user-centered, human-centered. And so I think that's the thing. It's like, I want to make sure I'm very clear that I am not saying disregard the UX skill set, because that UX skill set is still very important. But you could do that, and you could utilize that skill set with nearly any title. And so I think that's something to really make sure that we call out, is like, continue the UX piece, because that's still very important, and that's going to deliver great software that people actually want, that people want to use. But that doesn't mean you have to be so like laser focused on like me as UX designer.
So you've teed this up perfectly, Jeremy, by continuing being a UX designer, because as it turns out, you actually have a book coming out.
Oh yeah,
very soon. About beyond UX. I mean, that is Absolutely. So, what was the inspiration behind this book, and what can we expect to learn from it?
Yeah, for sure. So the inspiration, I mentioned I was on ADP list a while ago, right? And I literally got the same questions every single session, like without fail. It was always, something about a portfolio. It was something about breaking into UX design. It was something about difficult product managers, the same questions over and over and over again. And so Claire. I was like, like people clearly aren't getting this. And I think what's happening is I wasn't ever getting questions about like Figma. It wasn't hard skill questions. It was all the other stuff. It was the stuff that was beyond those technical, tactical skills that they were learning in school. And it wasn't just boot camps. A lot of these people were in 4-year programs as well. So I don't want to like throw shade just to boot camps, because I think the same thing happens in academia. So that's really what spawned the show, the episode, the Beyond UX Design. And when I first started doing Beyond UX Design, I didn't interview people for like the first 15, 20 episodes.
How many episodes are you up to, by the way? Just
100 came out today.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Today, 100.
Today.
Happy 100. Let's get some.
Thank you.
It's 9 a.m. I'm going to pull the champagne out. So.
Hot damn. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. 100. I can't believe I've done 100. But I started basically like I would write a blog post and kind of just read it, essentially. And it was I basically took like all the questions I was getting in these ADP list sessions and just sort of answering them. Because I'm like, well, people clearly don't know these things. And so I didn't do it to promote the show. Actually, when people would get when call in, it's like, we only have 30 minutes. Like, here, I made this thing, go listen to that. And, hopefully that answers some of your questions, and then we can talk about this stuff if you have more questions. So anyway, I started to do that. And what I realized was there's sort of like an arc with a lot of this stuff. And so what I did was I took a lot of that stuff I wrote and started to kind of compile it into a book form. So I did that. And that was the first edition that I released last year as ebook. It wasn't printed.
I was a purchaser, FYI.
Oh,
I do have the ebook version.
Cool.
Yes.
I hope it was helpful. But what I realized after I got laid off again in December was that a lot of the advice that I was giving people, I was like, I don't even feel qualified to give this advice. And so the first half of the book was really like getting into, it was about portfolio, it was about networking, it was about job hunting. And then the second half was really about like, what do I do once I have the job? And so I was like, if I'm going to do the print, I want something. And that's the other thing too, with the job market. It's so like dynamic. It's changing all the time. Like, I can't tell you right now with any certainty that the advice I'm giving you is going to help you get a job if you pick this book up 5 years from now. Hopefully people are still buying it 5 years from now, but I'm willing to bet, humans aren't going to change all that much in 5, 10, 15 years. And so the stuff about dealing with people, I think is more timeless. And so for the print version, I basically cut like 5 chapters out of the ebook and focused more and expanded on the other parts, which is, dealing with low maturity, dealing with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, things like that, which you're going to face. And that's not going to go away anytime soon, I don't think. If anything, it's probably just going to get worse. So I think those are more important. So anyway, so the new print version is coming out in hopefully before Thanksgiving. My goal is to have it about the week or so before Thanksgiving. And it's good. It focuses way more on the job aspect versus the hiring part. So more of the stuff we kind of talked about today. Because like I said, I don't know that my advice for getting a job is really good. And there's like literally thousands of people that are all giving great advice online that I just like, what's the point in hearing one more person? Like, I think Claire, you mentioned paralysis of choice earlier. Like, it's exactly.
It's mind blowing to me that you have written an entire, but like, I think about like the things I do on the set, like author, that's just great. Which, by the way, you're going to have to add that to your bio. It does not say author in your bio.
Oh, no? Oh, yeah. Well, that bio I pulled from the book. So like, yeah, I guess. Yeah. I have to add that, don't I?
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'm so bad about like promoting myself.
So Jeremy, last thing before we go, this is one of Claire's favorite things. Actually, look at her. She already knows what's coming. We love gripes. We love to hear your gripe. What are your yeah, we should stop continue doing some things. But man, what have you had it with? Like what?
Yeah. Well, I think the gripes that I have, and I sound so cynical with this, but like, it's really just the laser focus on like, it's the attention something like Figma gets, right? Like Figma is arguably the biggest conference for UX designers that happens.
And it's a tool.
And it is all about a tool.
Yeah.
It is all about a tool. And I will give them credit. They do make an effort. There are people that go up and talk, but as UX designers, our laser focus on that one tool just pisses me the hell off. And I don't want to imply that Figma's bad. I use Figma. I love Figma. I think it's a wonderful tool, but that is just one tiny little aspect of your job. And I can guarantee you 5, maybe 10 years from now, there will be another tool that has come along to replace Figma. And if you have, centered your entire career around utilizing a single tool, you are setting yourself up to be a dinosaur 5 years from now. I can promise.
Well, it's crazy. It's asinine to me. Yeah, I'm with you. It's asinine to me because it's like Claire, if you said product board was your reason for the season of being a product manager, like I'm so good at product board that it makes me a bona fide product manager, or an engineer. Like I kick Jira's ass on a daily basis. Like I am a solid engineer, right? It's ludicrous to me. I'm with you on that one. I don't
get it. So that's my big gripe. Like, it's just the laser focus on a tool. It's not even hard skills. It's a tool, one option for,
it is a vessel. It is a means to an end, right?
Yeah. Now, it's a great tool and it does a lot of really cool things. Don't get me wrong, but and you can't fault Figma because that conference is a fucking marketing event. It's a marketing event.
1,000%.
It is there to sell more seats. It is there to sell more subscriptions to Figma.
Which is why it's free virtually, right? Like they're not.
Give them a little taste. Give you a little taste.
Yeah. Just
Oh, you want to add another person? Oh, it's going to cost you. Yeah.
Oh
exactly.
my gosh. No, I'm with you. But yes, a great tool. You know what else was a great tool? Photoshop back in the day when that's all we had.
Exactly.
You know what else was a great tool?
Sure.
Sketch back in the day when that was all we had. So 1,000% it's going to evolve. I mean, I don't know. Figma, I don't think has anything to worry about anytime soon, but it will evolve. It will evolve.
Whatever happened to Sketch?
That's a great question.
So you want to hear my?
I
don't know anybody.
Do you have the hot goss? Let's hear it.
I do not. No, but this is my theory: is one, Sketch tied itself to Mac.
Yes, but which was out the gates a mistake in my opinion. But
so it was great for a while when the UX industry was focused on the United States and the West, when we could all afford a Mac. The problem was now there are people outside of the West where a Mac is twice as expensive because of tariffs and all these other things. And they simply could not afford Sketch, right? Because it went, and that, and then also too, have you've had to deal with multiple designers in a single Sketch file and how that freaking works. And it was so bad that they had to have plugins that basically created like Git repos to manage and checking out files.
And then you had to use InVision to actually go prototype. Yeah,
that was my next question.
So
what happened to InVision?
Oh, that's
InVision died because Sketch died.
Yes.
So it tied itself to they sort of embedded themselves. And to be fair, Sketch did try to do the prototyping thing, but InVision was way more powerful, I think. And so anyway, you had people that needed to design in Africa and other places in the global South that didn't necessarily have the income. The cost of living was much lower. They didn't get paid as much. The millions and probably billions of designers in India alone, so that I think is ultimately probably, again, supply and demand. It goes back to economics, but you had people that needed a tool that couldn't use Sketch. Somebody came along, gave them an out, and they jumped. And also Figma being free for all those other people, it made total sense. And then enterprise is ridiculously expensive, but all those designers that are familiar with it pushed to get the budget to buy Figma. I mean, anyway, very smart marketing on their part, but that's my theory of what happened with Sketch and InVision and stuff. But
it seemed like it happened so fast too, because I was working at an agency and the developers, designers had to be in Sketch. I left the agency and within a year, when I started back at the job where I am now, it was Figma. Like Sketch was gone. I was like, oh, wait, what?
And what year was that? The same thing happened to me. It was like in the
2020.
18. Whoa, that was like 18 for me. 19?
Y'all, 2023, when I left GE, they were using Sketch.
Really? Okay.
Now, here's the thing. This actually is the thing I think Figma might have some issues within enterprise. GE had very valid security concerns because that file does not live on your computer anymore. It is in the cloud on somebody else's machine, and there are especially in aerospace, very strict export control guidelines, which is federal crimes if you break export control rules, right? So you have to be very careful, and you have to be very sure that the data does not end up in the wrong place. And so it was a security concern for GE for a long time because those Sketch files lived on a local machine.
They're in the cloud,
so,
the infamous cloud.
And we didn't. Well, we didn't even have access. They blocked Sketch Cloud for us, so we couldn't even get the Sketch Cloud benefits.
One of the craziest things I've seen in my career, not crazy, it's just like mind-blowing, right? I interviewed a candidate and this was probably 2019-ish. So like there was still this split Sketch Figma thing happening around that time. But anyway, I interviewed a candidate who worked government, right? So security was a huge issue. They were not allowed to use anything except for PowerPoint to create designs.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, see your reaction right there. So I get this whole portfolio in PowerPoint and walks me through their presentation in PowerPoint. Well, obviously the presentation was in PowerPoint, but the designs were there because they could shut it down. It was a Microsoft license. It was controllable. For security reasons. I just can't imagine anything worse as a designer than having to do all
it all depends on how your team is set up, though, right? If I'm making assumptions here. actually, it probably shouldn't make this assumption, because if they had to do all that, they probably didn't have the software engineering team was probably limited and hamstrung in certain ways as well. But if you've got, this is something I strive for with every team I'm on. If you've got like an amazing design system, component library that works really well, you and an engineer could go into a room, whiteboard some stuff. They take that and put it in a production ready, prototype in a matter of weeks. And you never have to design a thing, right? So it all depends how your team is set up. I have no problem getting to that place and designing in code essentially, but some teams, I don't know. It's interesting because like in that case, that designer, you have to give them a lot of credit because they were able to do a lot with very little resources and and a lot of constraints. And so the problem solving there, but if you're hiring if you really need like a really great visual designer, that's probably not the person. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know.
Where are they? I mean, what magic can you make happen in PowerPoint? Yeah, that's true. Right? Like
that's true.
I hear I hear the phrase, "Hey, I'm a designer, man. All I do for my whole career is just push boxes around a screen." Right? Mm-hmm. That's all PowerPoint is, man. Just pushing boxes around a screen. So I don't know. So anyway, so for anyone listening, what we're telling you today is to switch to PowerPoint. No, I'm just kidding. So.
Set yourself free.
Set yourself free. Move to PowerPoint. So, all right. On that note, Jeremy, anything else that is top of mind, gripe for you before we wrap this up? This is your moment to free yourself.
Again, I this is not really a gripe. Maybe it's just sort of parting advice. But again, I said this, but you can't build great software without great relationships. It's I know a lot of people online that will say design is a team sport. Or UX is a team sport. And I think that gives the wrong impression, because I don't want to give the impression that, a stakeholder should be designing necessarily. I don't want to take jobs away from UX designers or anything like that. But I think at the end of the day, a great user experience, great software is a team sport. And everybody on the team is responsible, or should be responsible at the end of the day, for the experience the user has. Bugs, pricing, support, all that stuff. At the end of the day, impacts, and it can definitely make or break the experience a user has. And so, I don't know. That's just sort of like actually, I mentioned this in the book. I want to bring this up right now because I think this is important. So like, if you think about UX, this is sort of something that I think kind of drives me. Actually, yeah, this is a gripe. All right. So UX designer, I'm the designer. I design the user experience as if like you are the one who can just magically wave a magic wand. I am manifesting a really great user experience, right? It's just such bullshit. It's such bullshit. You are helping to inform at the end of the day what could be the user's experience. You are not guaranteeing a thing. You are not, making sure that because that border radius is 4 pixels instead of 5, there is going to be a great user experience, right? You could do all the research in the world. You could do all that other stuff. You could know your users inside and out, but again, people are not the average, and somebody is going to have a bad experience. I promise you. And your job is to understand that and help the rest of the team understand that, the internet speed is going to be slow in this area. So we need to figure out how to make this thing performant and make it faster, or remove the number of bugs, or the support team needs to change the script, or whatever it is. And you've got to understand that and help the team understand that.
So we are basically the weather forecasters of software, right?
Ooh, I like that.
So we can give a hypothesis of what's going to happen, but chances are 99% of the time we're going to be wrong for someone.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I love that.
Yeah, you can use that. You know what? I'm going to trademark it, and you can license it from me.
Put it on a mug. Can we sell that? Can we sell that on the shop, Beyond UX Design shop?
You know what? Let's do it.
I can make a mug
do it
very easily. Print on demand. It's amazing. All we need to do is send them a file.
Weather forecasters of software. Beautiful. On that note,
Bounce X Beyond UX.
Yeah, that's our collab right there.
I love it.
We just nailed it. Look at that. We have merch coming out of this episode. I love it. Perfect. Well, on that note, Jeremy, I am so grateful that you joined us today. It's been a blast. I've learned so many things about PowerPoint and merch and just all the like. So really grateful you've been on the show. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Can I give my website a shout out?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you mind? Okay.
Shout it.
All right.
Shout it loud.
Check out beyonduxdesign.com. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/shop. And I'm going to do a special coupon for anybody listening, 25% off. Use the code BOUNCE and you get 25% off. You can get the book there, beyonduxdesign.com/book. If you're interested in getting the book, you talk about that. You can go and check out all the stuff about what the book is and all that. Print should be out soon. beyonduxdesign.com/coaching. If you want to do mid-level designer, dealing with a lot of the shit we talked about today, and you need some help, I can help you there as well. And edgecasedesign.co, Edgecase with a K, because Casey is my partner, and his Edgecase is, we thought
also my favorite city, but keep going.
Oh, what is
KC?
KC. Oh, wait,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Kansas City. I see what you did there. That was like totally over my head. Anyway, edgecasedesign.co if you're a startup, and well-funded startup, and you're looking for some help, a design partner, we're there for you. So that's everything I got.
Well, I will
Sorry,
go there.
I didn't mean to take up so much time.
I will go there immediately. And again, thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to end this episode by saying go Auburn. So
War Eagle.
Or Eagles.
LSU.
Yeah. LSU.
I'm gonna go with Who Dat.
Who Dat? Who Dat?
Who Dat?
No.
Who Dat,
Okay.
baby.
We're ending it now.
We're
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you'd like to connect with us, check out our website at bouncepodcast.com.